On the other hand, Fischer was perhaps the greatest aficionado of bishops ever seen, and the vast majority of grandmasters prefer bishops to knights. Nevertheless, whatever one's bias might be, you have to know how to get the most out of both pieces and how to pit one against another. Fischer clearly preferred bishops to knights, but that didn't stop him from winning a knight versus bishop battle if he felt the position favored the horse. The same can be said for knight worshippers. If these folk find themselves in a wide open position, chances are the bishop will be the minor piece of preference. Ultimately, the real value of the minor pieces depends on the combined imbalances on the board. The position is closed. Knights are often for choice. Are you staring at an endgame with mutual running past pawns? The bishop usually wipes the floor with the knight. And which minor piece would you choose in a position where it's all important to be able to access both color squares? A bishop can't do that, so a knight is the way to go. The battle of the minor pieces, each possessing different powers, is my favorite in all of chess. If I possess a knight, I try hard to imprint knight characteristics on the board so that the rapidly approaching battle with the enemy bishop will favor me. If I have a bishop, I do everything possible to make the position bishop friendly. The ability to create a promising position for your minor pieces will set you apart from the other players. In fact, after losing your superior knight or bishop, your depressed and clueless opponent will often tell you that it was just bad luck that things didn't work out for him. The following things are critical in all bishop versus knight battles. Be aware that there is going to be a bishop versus knight battle. Be aware of all the imbalances and how they relate to the minor pieces you and your opponent own. Create a board situation that your minor piece craves. Feeling the minor piece tension. Our first example shows how an apparently simple position can actually be filled with minor piece tension. White to move. Please treat the variations in this example as a sort of theatrical drama. It might not be based on reality, but it has a profound effect on the viewer. I'm hoping this game will pass on a sense of urgency, a visual slap in the face that makes you exclaim, "Wow, I didn't realize that a boring minor piece battle was so important, and that it could go back and forth so easily." On the surface, things look easy. White has two bishops, and would like to open things up, while Black has a bishop and knight, and would be happy if he could activate his bishop and find a nice home for his horse. The main questions here are, should White take on e5, push to d5, or simply ignore the face-off between the d4 and e5 pawns altogether? All these decisions are dependent on how they ultimately affect the state of the minor pieces, but achieving the optimum goals proves far harder than one might suppose. Let's take a look at these different options. Closing the center. d5. This gains space, kills off the black bishop's hopes for an open a1 h8 diagonal, and deprives the knight of c6. These things certainly sound great, but it all falls flat after black's thematic reply. Bishop g5, exclaim. White suddenly has nothing. Black's move forces the exchange of the dark squared bishops. This deprives white of his bishop pair, and after bishop takes g5, queen takes g5, creates a new minor piece battle of knight versus inactive bishop. White to move. Black wins the minor piece battle. Rule. If your opponent has two bishops, exchange one off and create a more manageable bishop versus bishop or bishop versus knight scenario. Passing. Black has no problems. His knight is good piece. White's bishop isn't very impressive. White's central majority isn't going anywhere, and black enjoys some pressure against e4. If g3, question mark exclaim, note that 7 c5, d takes c5, queen takes c5, double question mark, fails to knight f3 check. Winning white's queen. So after g3, knight to d7, and covers the rook so that e4 is attacked. Opens up the e5 square for black's queen, and also creates the possibility of knight to c5. There was no hurry for this since 11 rook e7. Followed by rook ae8. Was also quite good. However, 11 knight d4 shows black clearly winning the minor piece battle, so it's important to highlight. And the knight has found a permanent home on d4. Black's minor piece is a happy camper. Let's open it up. White to move. D takes c5. The critical try. However, it's not a trivial decision because white has to worry about d takes e5, giving his opponent a lock on the d4 square after knight to c6. Though this sounds impressive for black, it turns out to be problematic since white gains a bothersome initiative. Queen to c8 double question mark walks headfirst into bishop g4 when white's bishops have won the day. And this is +3 for white. The only move by any means, but it's certainly the most thematic. Trading the horrible bishop for white's good one makes perfect sense. Naturally, black would jump at knight c6 to d4, except that knight c6 allows rook to d7. c5 exclaim. This not only gives white active possibilities on the a2-ga diagonal, but it also allows the light square bishop to be active even if it's driven back. Bishop g4 to e2 to c4 is suddenly on. White's quite happy with this. His f1 rook is suddenly king of the f-file, and black's dreamed of knight domination via knight b8 to c6 to d4 is no longer on the table. Queen takes c5, double question mark. Rook takes f7 is too strong. Or else the rook hangs. If king h7. So if c6 then mate. And this wins. So instead of queen takes c5, king h8. Hoping to chase the bishop away by h6 to h5. Not losing sight of the bishop versus knight battle. White takes aim at e5. While also preparing bishop g4 to e2. When the bishop can find an active role along the f1 to a6 diagonal. Most notably leaping to c4 or b5 in many variations. Instead of queen c3, bishop c8 is hard to resist if you see it. Lines like rook takes c8, or if queen takes c5, queen e6 mates. Rook df1, give white a fearsome attack. Black can put up a much better defense, but I think the variations after 8 bishop c8 are still fun for white. This is an enjoyable line to analyze, but has no place in this book since it takes us far afield from our bishop versus knight theme. I should add that white has many good moves here. For example, 8c6 also looks tasty and highlights the sad state of black's knight. This gives white a huge advantage, plus 1.1. So f6 instead of queen takes c5. And it's clear that the bishop is superior to the knight. White finally won a minor piece battle. So, does this mean that d takes e5 is just better for white? Not necessarily. Black lost that battle because he didn't do enough to make his knight challenge the white bishops. So let's step back to diagram 73 and show a more principled course for black. This is more like it. Black insists on making his knight an active participant in the game. This is how a knight should be used. This is okay for black. So bishop takes, then this wins. So rook b8. So instead of bishop takes d4, bishop to g4. This move gives black good compensation for the sacrificed pawn. Black's knight is strutting its stuff. I should add that after d takes e5, black isn't forced to take back with his pawn. Here's a final minor piece battle from the position in diagram 73. White opens things up as much as possible. Instead, 2 bishop g4, this gives white an edge, thanks to his center and 2 nice bishops. So bishop takes b2 instead of bishop f6. Is okay for black after rook takes b7. So c5 instead of bishop g4. g5 exclaim, which fights for the dark squares and prevents f2, f4, is far more combative. And here white's central majority and active bishop grants him the more pleasant position. Though black's knight is still hoping to make an impact, with knight c6 to d4 at some point. We've seen the minor piece battle swing back and forth in these lines. Clearly, the bishop versus knight face-off is important and calls for energetic and pointed play if you wish to see your minor piece reign supreme. Chess Kings aims to provide quality chess programs for people of all ages. If you'd like this video and want to see more, consider donating to Chess Kings by going to our website and clicking the donate button. Buy my book, The Real Beginner's Guide to Chess, available on Amazon for $14.99. And remember to like and subscribe.